Welcome, everyone, to episode 48 of the RDH Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Chad, joined alongside with my brother Tanner. How's it hanging, dude?
It's going well. The last time you guys saw us, we were in a different state, a state I've never been to actually, in Wyoming, and we had a good time with our cousin Adam for Chad's bachelor party, and that was really fun. Got to go do some snowboarding. Had a couple little happy accidents happen too, so it was a good time. I enjoyed it all, and now we're back, getting back on the grind. The draft is coming up. We've got basketball. It's a good time of the year. I'm really excited for, the sports we're about to get.
Oh yeah, today on deck we have some NCAA defensive end prospect profiles. We're recapping winners and losers of NFL free agency, and lastly, like Tanner said, we're gonna touch on a little bit of the March Madness recap because it's March and the madness is definitely happening. But yeah, Tanner mentioned it. We went snowboarding in Wyoming and had some good times. Some great times down the slopes. I got into it. I went off the first jump and I thought to myself, yeah, I can do this. And then, I smacked my face on the ground and busted my lip open. Tanner, I won't disclose his injury, but there was a bone that is not necessarily doing too hot there. But anyway, sports talk. And believe it or not, we are athletic. Well, I'm athletic. Tanner, no offense, dude, you don't have an athletic bone in your body.
Hey,
Um,
hey.
but but that's why we're doing the pod, right? Tanner's the analytical guy. No, just kidding. He's got way better at horse and pig and basketball for sure. But
It's not true.
that sport waits till the end. We're hitting some defensive end prospect profiles. Essentially, what we do in this part of the draft or this part of the episode, I just nailed it. Is we talk about the NFL draft coming up. A lot of draft coverage in our recent episodes. So if you haven't caught, these position groups, go ahead and check out our most recent episodes on Spotify or YouTube. Just RDH Sports. And then we have a website, rdhsports.net, and we have socials, rdh.sports on pretty much every social media platform. And I have all of the articles and everything for all of these prospect profiles on there too. So check that out. But without further ado, today, I'm going to start with defensive ends. That's the group we're going to. We got 7 total defensive ends. The first one I'm going to start kind of projecting is going to be in the late second round, maybe early third. So that's kind of the range I'm going today. There's a lot of really good edges or defensive ends. I think it's a, whatever you want to call them. But first, we're starting with Braylon Trice, the edge or defensive end out of Washington. He's a junior. Draft grade for me is going to be a late second round to early third. Draft projection for me is going to be a late second. I don't think he makes it to the third round, especially after the combine performance he put on. Trice, he's had multiple plays in the Pac-12 championship game where he blew up the offensive line and literally threw linemen to the ground. To me, he's about a 60-40 mix of a run defender versus pass rusher when watching the tape. And I'm a big fan of the versatility with this and power with this player. And you don't typically see versatility and power with a player, but this kid's got both of them. Nonetheless, he's a late second round grade for me. I don't think we'll draft grade. He's late second, early third. I don't think he makes it to the third round. I think he's got too many traits that NFL GMs are going to jump on. This is one of my favorite names of the draft. Believe it or not, it's not my favorite name, but this is my second favorite name in the draft. And this kid's nasty. His name's Chop Robinson, CHOP, Chop Robinson. He's the edge or defensive end out of Penn State. Classification is going to be a junior. Draft grade for him is going to be a mid to late second round. Draft projection is going to be mid to late second round as well. Um, who will be drafted out of Penn State first? Chop Robinson or Isaac? We don't know. These players are so close in terms of pure prospect ranking ahead of the draft, but Robinson, to me, has the nod in the pass rushing category. He's extremely productive when he's on the field. This player has a ton of snaps already under his belt, and he edges himself in that category as well over Isaac. But the only concern I have about Chop Robinson is he he has so many games, right, and so many snaps, but they kind of lower each season. So to me, I want to know if that's just maybe the coaches are taking him out, maybe games are going a little bit differently. I don't watch every single game; I watch most of them, but he didn't seem like he was on the field as much. But I think that's also because his counterpart Isaac. But anyway, this is a great prospect with tremendous upside. So if your NFL team needs an edge rusher, someone to go get the quarterback in the second round, this is kind of where this guy is going to be. And like I mentioned, his counterpart, Adiza Isaac, edge or defensive end out of Penn State. This kid's a senior. Draft grade for me is also a mid to late second. Draft projection is going to be a mid second round. 6'4", 254, and can stop the run. I watched this player stop so many outside handoffs this season. It was unbelievable. He didn't have a ton of production in his 2022 season, but he got better each season, and that's what you want to see. In 2022, Isaac had 9 sacks and 20 quarterback hurries. This player, to me, I see about a 70-30% split with running the ball, or sorry, stopping the run versus rushing the passes. This is more of a run stuffer here, in my opinion. I'll be interesting to see if he continues to perfect his run stuffing game or develops more as a pass rusher. So, both these prospects from Penn State, I see Chop Robinson and Isaac going extremely close to each other in this draft, if not a couple picks apart. I just released my top 50 rankings on rdhsports.net. We'll hit that in a couple episodes because it's going to take a while to go through it. But these guys are literally 1 to 2 prospects apart. They're so close, but I think I would give Robinson the edge personally because I want more of a pass rusher in terms of the team that I'm going for. But if you want more of a run stopper that can kind of jump in the edge, he's not necessarily a DeMarcus Lawrence, Isaac, but he reminds me of he could potentially get to that ability. But he is a bit of a project. The next pass rusher we have, he is the edge or defensive end out of Alabama, Chris Broswell. He's a senior as well. Draft grade is going to be an early to mid second for me. Draft projection is going to be an early to mid second. He gained more playtime each season at Alabama. Obviously, at Alabama, it's really hard to start on that defensive line, especially when, last year you had a literal top 3 pick go on that defensive line. But in 2022, Braswell played over 300 snaps. Then in 2024, he was a full-time starter with over 500 snaps, and the production followed. 13 sacks, 33 quarterback hurries this season, proving to everyone he is a starting edge rusher for Alabama, which is practically better than some NFL teams. So I'm interested to see how high this player goes because he's really only been a full-time starter for 1.5 seasons, if you want to get technical with it. But we'll see. There's a lot of Alabama players in this draft that I don't know where they're going to go in terms of how high. This kid, like I said, is an early to mid second draft projection, but these Alabama prospects tend to jump up in the first round. So we'll see what happens here. This kid, I'm so glad we waited till today because he had his pro day. I literally just got done watching his pro day. I don't know how to say his first name. I'm probably going to mess this one up. Latu. He's the edge out of UCLA. Senior, draft grades a mid first round grade. Draft projection is going to be a mid to late first round. He shot up draft boards after his final season in college. He accounted for 15 sacks and 36 cornerback hurries. Tanner, we actually saw this guy in person, believe it or not. Latu was in pretty much every opposing team's backfield this season, including the game that we went to see against USC. He's PFF's highest graded pass rusher this season. That's right, the highest in college football. But Latu mostly lined up outside the tackle, but has the versatility to jump to the B gap and over the tackle, in my opinion, at his next level. If Latu plays like he did this season in the NFL, he'd be the best pass rusher in this class. So this kid to me has the most upside in this class, but he just got to replicate the season that he had this year. Because if he replicates this season, he's an easy first round prospect. If he doesn't replicate this season, then to me he drops the second round. But I think this kid easily goes probably top 20 in my opinion. The next guy we got to talk about, Jared Verse, the edge or defensive end out of Florida State. He's a junior. Draft grade is going to be a mid first round grade for me. Draft projection is going to be mid to late first. Who's a more elite pass rusher? The kid out of Alabama, Turner, or Jared Verse out of Florida State? Identical players in terms of quickness with the pass rushers in this class. Arguably, Verse has had more consistent collegiate career than Turner, but are you going to go with the kid out of Alabama or are you going to go with the kid out of Florida State? Verse lined up mostly outside the tackle, but did line up over the tackle at points too. So great pressure, great pure pass rusher with 11 sacks and 36 quarterback hurries in his junior season. This player is 6'4", 260 pounds. That's the last thing I had in my prospect profile. His size completely jumps off the tape to me. But I'm really interested to see who goes first here. I think Latu makes a solid case, especially after his pro day, the edge out of UCLA we just talked about. Jared Verse here, the edge or defensive end out of Florida State. And the last one I'm talking about is Dallas Turner, the edge out of Alabama. I don't know which one of these guys are going to go first. They're all very close to me. Personally, I have Dallas Turner rated above in my top 50 than the other 2 prospects. But Dallas Turner, like I said, edge, Alabama, junior, best pass rusher in this draft class. Draft grade to me is going to be a mid first round. Draft projection is going to be an early to mid first round. This is the first time in a couple draft classes that I had a defensive end not being an early first round grade. Notice that this is my best defensive end I've got on the board, and the highest I get's a mid first round grade. So I don't see, I do see Dallas Turner potentially going in the top 10 because pass rusher is such a big category, but I wouldn't necessarily take this player in the top 10. I think his sweet spot is between 10 and 20. And it really depends on how many quarterbacks go between 1 and 5 if this player is going to still be there at pick 10. But 11 sacks and 33 quarterback hurries in his junior season at Alabama. This is a hungry defensive end that has elite get off speed. In my opinion, like I said, he may be the top pass rushing defensive end in this class, but his quickness is something that is absolutely unbelievable off the line. He is one of the quickest players and, like I said, elite speed. So ferocious pass rusher out of Alabama. If he continues to develop at this rate, he'll be in the Pro Bowl. You know what I mean? At the end of his second season, and be competing for Defensive Rookie of the Year in his first season, just like his counterpart last year did, Will Anderson Jr. out of Alabama for Houston. Most of his time he lined up outside the tackle, which shows his pure pass rushing ability. So Nick Saban really used this guy to get to the quarterback. And when you're coached by Nick Saban, it's literally like you've already been coached by an NFL coach. So much, so many more things to talk about in the upcoming episodes about these prospects and where they're going to go. But that's the end of the prospect profile section today. We got to shout this out. Tanner has been the maker of this. I know you've been listening to me talk for a while now, so I'm gonna give it over to him. Tanner, why don't you let the fans know what we're doing on draft day, dude?
This is gonna be fun. I'm glad you threw it over to me for this. I've been making a draft overhaul, like a little interface, I guess, like a something to look at. We got our pretty screen here. We got our socials. We got everything here, but it's gonna be upgraded. It's gonna be a lot upgraded. We're gonna have live coverage of the draft. We're gonna go through the first
coverage
round
of the NFL draft, guys. Do you hear that? We are finally doing it. We're
Mhm.
finally here. Anyway, keep going, Tanner.
It's going to be fun. I mean, it's you see a lot of these other guys do it. I mean, obviously we can't show the draft itself, but we will have, like I said, like a nice little overlay, displaying the picks, displaying what's coming up, displaying what's happened. So if you want to tune into our stream, or you can't tune into the NFL Network, or you don't like the ESPN broadcast, come over here to RDH Sports, and you can listen to us chatter about the draft and have Chad's expert opinions on all these players. So we'll be ready on draft night. We'll do it for the first round for sure, throughout the entire first round, and we'll be doing that, I think, live on YouTube, and we'll see about Twitch. We're still in the works with that one, but definitely YouTube, and you just go to the YouTube channel, literally probably where you are right now, and it probably won't be live on Spotify. I don't know if that's a thing you can do, but we'll see. We're continuing it. We're getting ready for it, though, and you should be ready too, with all the information Chad stuffs in our brains. So it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be really fun. I hope to see so many people there.
I can't wait. I can't wait. It's something I've wanted to do since I've started releasing these prospect profiles, and we this isn't a lot, but we got to shout out the little wins on this podcast and YouTube. We just got up to a whole 40 subscribers, so I appreciate that, everybody. TikTok, I recently took a look at, and we're doing really well on TikTok too, so thank you guys for all the love that we've gotten so far. And this draft coverage is really when we post a ton on social. We're going to continue to post a ton on social, but like Tanner said, I'm the draft guru of this podcast, and for about 3 months leading up to the draft, we've been talking about these prospects at length. And each year we're going to keep getting better and better, and we're going to start talking about these prospects next year. We're going to start talking about them earlier. We got a schedule, we got everything now. I got the brains behind the operation with Tanner here. I ask him to an idea, and he just runs with it and makes it look like freaking NFL Network. So, like he said, we're going to be live streaming the draft. It's going to be the time of the draft. We're not 100% sure when that is yet. But when we look and we get that, we will definitely post that everywhere. And, you'll be able to just click in. I'll make sure to post on our socials right when we go live. So if you follow us on any of our socials, all you got to do is click, and you can jump into that live stream. But like Tanner said, the first round of the NFL draft, it's usually on a Thursday. So it's going to be on a Thursday, typically right around 5 o'clock, my time on the West Coast time. So most likely around 7 p.m. On Central Time, if that's where you're at. East Coast, it's a little bit later, probably around 8 p.m. is when the draft starts for you. And that's when we'll be live, right when the draft goes on. Tanner and I will literally be talking about the draft. Like he said, it's live streaming on YouTube. So NFL Network and ESPN, you kind of got to pay for those. So if you don't want to, do a subscription, all you got to do is type in RDH Sports on YouTube and we'll be live streaming. Every single pick is going to be displayed at the bottom of the screen, just like, all the other sports platforms. You're going to see every pick that's taken, every team that's taken. You're going to see exactly what round it is, exactly what pick it is, the prospect that goes right when they go. We'll update it on the stream. So you'll be able to see all of this in real time and be able to ask any questions you want to ask. And I hope I can answer those questions, because this year I've watched, I think right around 90 prospects this year with everything going on. So I usually watch right around 120, believe it or not. So I haven't watched as many, but I still got a month till the draft. I can easily get there, but we're going to live stream the first round. Cannot wait for it. So stoked about it. But that is all the NFL draft talk we have today. Next episode, in future episodes, I'll just let you know, we got defensive tackles on deck and we've got defensive backs and linebackers on deck. So I'll probably hit the defensive tackles and the linebackers next podcast. It's not a ton of linebackers in this draft class. There's a solid one though, a really, really solid one. He's in my top 50. He's not the first linebacker, but I got to shout him out because Tanner's got the Texas A&M shirt. I got the ring. Tanner's got the ring on. We got a good linebacker coming out of Texas A&M this year. But before I keep going into this draft talk, Tanner, let's actually talk about NFL free agency, because if you listened to this podcast last time, like Tanner said, we were in another state and we were talking about these guys. We were talking about where they could potentially sign. So that's why we've waited. We didn't want to do this podcast early in the week. We wanted it to wait till we got all these signings done so we can talk about winners and losers. You ready to jump into this, Tanner?
I am always ready to jump into this, Chad.
That's what I'm talking about. Then we're going to hit a little bit of March Madness at the end. So we are going to start with the winners. Okay. We're going to start with the winners in NFL free agency. There's about 6 of them. Okay. Then there's losers. There's about 4 of them. I think we all know who one of the losers is. But anyway, we're going to jump into the first winners, the New York Jets. Okay. First of all, they bring in our boy Tyrod Taylor as their backup quarterback. Okay, see you later, Zach Wilson. That's we'll be seeing you. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna briefly go over all of these signings, and then Tanner and I are gonna talk about it. So they signed quarterback Tyrod Taylor, like I said, 2-year deal worth up to $18 million. Wide receiver Mike Williams. That's right, on a 1-year deal worth up to $15 million. Nobody saw the Chargers just flat out releasing Mike Williams, probably just like nobody saw the Cowboys releasing Michael Gallup. But Mike Williams, I think, is a bit more of a story there. Offensive tackle Morgan Moses, they got offensive tackle from the Dallas Cowboys, Tyrone Smith, 1-year deal worth up to $20 million. Lakeith Fuatu, the defensive lineman, signed a free agent contract. Javon Kinlaw signed a free agent deal there. If you remember Javon Kinlaw, he was out of South Carolina, and the 49ers drafted him, and he's a solid inside pass rusher. So that's a very good one. Isaiah Oliver, they got from, I want to say Isaiah Oliver is from Colorado or Colorado State. I think Colorado State. Solid corner. And then Greg Zuerlein, who played for the Cowboys on a 2-year, $8.4 million deal. And then they re-signed their punter, which you can't leave out Thomas Morstead, one of the best punters in the league. Not bad. Not bad. The Jets did pretty good. And not to mention, Aaron Rodgers is coming back fully healthy next year. Mm-hmm. So what do you think? I mean, tell me what you think about these signings, Tanner.
I like it a lot. I mean, I think it's just kind of, the cherry on top is that Mike Williams signing. I think that's just going to be absolutely disgusting. I mean, you got a guy like that. You got Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers.
Mike Williams is like the ultimate go ball guy. You know what I mean? Like, you just put him on a streak and he's going to get that ball. It doesn't really matter who he's going to go up against, unless it's like one of the best corners in the league. But luckily, a lot of these young guys are on his team, so he's not going to play against them unless it's in practice.
Good call.
But yeah, Mike Williams, I think that's really good. I think that him, in their other receiving core, like it's going to be nice.
Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson, and I don't know who else they have on there, but that's going to be a nice one too. And Breece Hall, like that offense is good. Their offensive line is getting a lot better. It's younger. Aaron Rodgers is going to be good. It's just, I mean, they upgraded in the places that they needed. I think they're going to be fine next year. I don't know if they're going to turn any heads, per se, because Rodgers is getting up there in age. But like, you never know. You know, we haven't seen him do anything in New York yet. So like the expectations, like there's really none, I would say, because after this first season, it was like, all right, well, the Jets are still the Jets. And then now it's like, are we good? I don't know. We could be. So
I think if you got Aaron Rodgers, to interject real quick, I think if you got Aaron Rodgers, you're counting on that your team being at least a playoff team. I mean,
Mhm.
when you tear your Achilles on like what the second or third snap or like that season at that point is kind of a wash anyway. You know what I mean? But you have a fully healthy Aaron Rodgers, and now you have a pissed off Mike Williams. And what did Aaron Rodgers used to do in Green Bay? He freaking torched people with Devontae Adams. He torched people with Jordy Nelson. Devontae Adams is an elite receiver.
Mhm.
Mike Williams, I think, has some elite instincts and some elite red zone ability, just like Devontae Adams does. So I think that not only this team got upgraded, I think this team got massively upgraded. They signed 3 offensive linemen. 3 offensive linemen they signed, and they have a young offensive lineman that they took, or young offensive lineman that they took not long ago in the top 10. So I think the Jets are not, excuse my language, not fucking around. Like I don't think they are. I don't think New York's tired. They're ready to get going. You know what I mean? You have Aaron Rodgers now, and I think if Aaron Rodgers stays healthy, this is a team that I think they might turn heads. I think they might. So I disagree with you there, but here's my thing. Is he gonna stay healthy? Like you said, is he gonna stay healthy? That's the last thing I'll say about the Jets. If Aaron Rodgers stays healthy, playoffs.
Yeah,
If
that's
he
fair.
doesn't, it's more of this season.
Yeah, I
So
mean it's tough. Like obviously last year was not what you wanted to see, but I just want to see him get back and get healthy. Obviously his recovery's been doing really well. We saw last year that he could have even stepped back in at some point, but I want to see I want to see it. I want to see training camp. I want to see him get up and get used to football speed and stuff like that. And because it's injuries are they're bad obviously, but they're worse for older players. So we'll see. I don't know. The Jets are kind of a question mark for me right now, but on paper, their roster looks really good. So moving on, I think we have the Steelers next, right?
we do. We have the Steelers. They acquired quarterback Justin Fields and quarterback Russell Wilson. They also signed Van Jefferson. They signed 2-year deal. Montrevious Adams, defensive tackle. This one's I can't believe that he even left. Arguably top 5 linebacker in the league, if not top 3. Patrick Queen, a 3-year, $41 million deal. That's not even a lot of damage, and he's in Pittsburgh. So now you have TJ Watt who rushes the passer, and now you have a guy in the middle of the field that you can't mess with. We'll get into that in a second. My goodness. Um, Cornerback Dante Jackson, safety Deshaun Elliott to a 2-year contract, safety Miles Killebrew to a 2-year contract, punter, and then their left side, Christian Kuntz. So, I mean, your initial thoughts, Tanner. Go ahead.
Disgusting. Just absolute. I think it's going to be a good reset for Russell Wilson. I don't really understand the Justin Fields trade, but they got him for like a 6 round pick. So who cares? Even if Russ goes down or if Russ sucks,
That's why.
Justin. He's like sitting there. He's waiting. He's got that chip on his shoulder now. So you really don't know what's going to happen with Russell Wilson, and your backup plan's just sitting, waiting, just ready to go. And I don't know. I think he can do a lot with that Steelers offense. I think they got a good, some good guys over there. I think they didn't they lose Deontay Johnson to free agency? I think he's somewhere else now. Um,
Correct. He is.
so they got George Pickens, and it's kind of it. But like, he's a number one. I think he'll be a number one. I think it'll be fine. I think Najee's starting to come on. The offense was starting to come on at the end of the year, and Russell Wilson's only going to make that better. In terms of the defense, absolutely, you're right. Patrick Queen is going to transform this defense again. It's such a Steelers player, you know what I mean? Like it's just such like a Steelers move. Just go get the best linebacker in free agency. And like, all right, we're good. Like that. Our defense is fine. They got Minka back there at safety. He's going to be doing all right. Patrick Queen's going to be doing all right. TJ Watt's going to be doing all right. These guys.
They have every facet of the field covered.
Yeah.
They have deep covered, they have middle covered, and now they've always had the line covered. I forgot about Minka. Dude.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh. My goodness, and guess who their coach is, right? Like, holy, yeah, that Steelers. Wow.
Yeah, very good offseason from the Steelers. I'm not surprised, but it's I mean it's one of those destinations in the NFL like, oh, you see like Pittsburgh's calling and you're a player and you're like, I want to go play for them. You want to go play for Tomlin, you want to go be in that culture. And like I said, Patrick Queen is just going to fit in like a glove, and I think Russell Wilson, I think he's going to get better. I think he's slowly gotten better since he's gone to Denver. And I don't know, third year's the charm, they say, right? So we'll see. We'll see what
Yeah.
happens.
We'll see. I love the one part I want to hit on is obviously Tanner and I are the biggest fans of the Patrick Queen signing. I love that they signed, 2 safeties as well to back up because, hey, you always need safety depth. And then, I mean, just the under the radar signing, it didn't go under the radar at all. It like broke social media because people couldn't believe it. But they like a 6th round pick for Justin Fields. Like I understand that he might not necessarily have played up to the level of round 1, pick 2, right behind Trevor Lawrence, but a 6th, you know what I mean? And then you see the Pittsburgh Steelers ship off their starting quarterback with Kenny Pickett. Like,
oh yeah,
they brought in 2 quarterbacks, 2 starting quarterbacks, fully knowing that it's Russ's last shot, and it's Justin Fields. Now this is like the territory of, is Justin Fields turning into a backup? Right? Is the round 1, pick 2 turning into a backup? Or is he a starter? Right? Does Justin Fields go to Pittsburgh and just play really well
he could.
in the preseason because he's used to playing against the first team defense? Now he's going against the second team defense because Russ has to be starting. There's no way Russ isn't starting. There's no way.
He is. I'm pretty sure they've come out and said it.
That's what I'm saying. So you automatically are putting Justin Fields into that backup role, and Russ is a guy that is going to teach Justin. Russ is not a guy that's going to walk away and give him the finger. You know what I mean? Russ is probably the cringiest guy in the NFL, but he is going to teach Justin. And you know how much that's going to help? Because what does Justin struggle with? Accuracy. What does he struggle with more than accuracy? Deep ball accuracy. Who doesn't struggle with deep ball accuracy? Well, who didn't in Seattle, right?
Yeah.
Different story in Denver. But I don't know. I love it. I think that not only did they get their starting linebacker, their franchise linebacker, I know it's only a 3-year contract, and now they got their I think starting quarterback. And if he doesn't work out, now we got another guy. And oh, by the way, we only signed Russ to 1-year deal. So, and by the way, Denver's holding most of that.
Oh yeah, all the money.
Pittsburgh's
and stuff.
paying. Yeah, Pittsburgh's paying barely, and I don't think Pittsburgh's paying Russ more than $3 million. So, you got, not only you got a deal on both of them. You got a deal on Russ, who could be your starter for the future, and you got a deal on Justin, who I thought I was drunk when I read it. I really did. I woke up and I was like, I've only had a cup of coffee. You know what I mean? But I thought I was, hammered. I'm like, what's going on here? But it actually happened. Jumping to the next team, the next winner. I mean, this team can't keep doing this, or they're going to be the best team in Texas. They got running back. Yeah, I'm not sure if Damian Pierce is working out. Let's go get Joe Mixon. Okay. Yeah. In exchange for a 7th round draft pick. Okay, Houston, you're okay. All right. Noah Brown re-signed. Dalton Schultz re-signed 3-year, $36 million deals. $36 million deal, 23.5 guaranteed. $12 million a year for a tight end. Tanner literally called that 3 episodes ago. Charlie Heck brought him back. Danico Autry, 2-year deal, $20 million, 10.5 guaranteed. They're beefing up their defensive line. Mario Edwards, they also got him to a 1-year deal. Tim Settle, they got him to a 2-year deal up to 7. Fulky, oh my gosh, I'm not even gonna try. Fully Fatisuki, and then by the way, the one that nobody thought was going to happen. Nobody thought Houston was going to go up in the draft last year and go get Will Anderson. Nobody thought Danielle Hunter was going to sign with the Houston Texans, but Danielle Hunter, the best pass rusher in free agency, him or Chase Young, I thought I'd give the edge to him. 2-year, $49 million deal, has a max value of 51, 48 guaranteed. So Texans, get to hold about $1 million, and they get to give him 48. But still, I mean, my goodness. Oh, we're not done yet, by the way. We have a linebacker, Azeez Al-Shaair, 3-year, $34 million deal. That's not just a depth player. That's a guy that's going to immediately start. We got Deshaun Delshon Phillips. Then they bring back, or they signed Mike Ford to a 2-year deal. Lonnie Johnson, Desmond King re-signed again. They brought in Jeff Okudah, former first-round pick from Ohio State, re-signed Eric Murray, re-signed their kicker Fairbairn to a 3-year deal, and they got a new punter, Tommy Townsend. So go ahead, because I need a drink of water. This is this overhaul's freaking crazy that the Texans got.
Danielle Hunter is just stupid. That's like an insane signing. I was not expecting that to happen. It came out and I was like, okay, well, Houston, they're all in, even though they're like 2 years off of a rebuild. And it's like, oh, okay, I guess they're just like good now. So that front office, give them a pat on the back. They've been doing this the last 2 years, like we saw last year. They went and got Dalton Schultz, and that proved to be a huge move that helped CJ out a ton. And they're going and getting Danielle Hunter. They're going and getting Joe Mixon. Like they're not stopping. Their offense is currently like, Nico Collins, Tank Dell. Now they got Joe Mixon and Dalton Schultz and CJ, and their offensive line is getting better too. And it's just like, oh my god, what? Wow. And like you said, I really like the Jeff Okudah signing too. Because I don't know, I was a big fan of Jeff Okudah when he was coming out in the draft, and he hasn't had the prettiest ride through the NFL, but like, what better place to go be and go play with CJ Stroud, go play, with this young defensive core, Derek Stingley and all these guys, defensive backs that are just like, okay, this is like my home now. It's like these guys they're like my age, we're gonna do this, and I love what they're doing in Houston. I think I think he's just a fantastic head coach, and I think that they're definitely the favorite to win that division this year. I think it's going to be clear cut if this roster plays up to even half of the potential that it could. So Texans fans are pretty happy right now. Houston might be on top again. We'll see. We'll see with the Texas battles, but like. Houston looks really, really good, and CJ's not slowing down. He's just going to get better, and I think it's the same story for the rest of the team too.
And just to hit on that last point you said, CJ's only going to get better.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Yeah, there is such thing as a sophomore slump. Dak Prescott definitely had it in his second season. He definitely wasn't the first season of Dak, but CJ did things that no quarterback has done as a rookie.
Ever.
So I don't even know if this kid's going to have ever.
Uh-oh.
I don't know if this kid's going to have a slump, and if he does have a slump, is it top 15?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Know. Is it top 15? Is that worst case scenario? Because you can't say CJ wasn't a top 10 quarterback last year. You really can't. Especially in games toward the end, you're like, this dude's a dog.
Yeah.
This kid's a dog. And then he goes and wins a playoff game. And it's like, okay, all right, you already got the rookie, the offensive rookie of the year, but now you just solidified it. Then you bring in a veteran running back with Joe Mixon. You re-sign your tight end, who was a top 5 tight end in the league last year. What's the one problem you had that you couldn't control? Your defense was on the field a little bit. They didn't stop teams as best as they could have. The defense wasn't as good as it could have. What was it missing? Oh, a premier pass rusher. It's okay. Will Anderson Jr. was top 3 in defensive rookie voting. It's okay. Let's bring in Danielle Hunter and let him learn from Danielle Hunter. That I can't overstate it enough how important it is for when you have a rookie player or a very young player that goes and you bring in a veteran like Danielle Hunter, who is that good and who has been that consistently good year over year over year. Like, this Texans team, I don't think are like, you can't say that they're necessarily the winners of free agency, because so many of these teams signed so many picks, and the team we're about to hit next, you're not even going to believe what they did. But the Texans are another team that's not messing around. And another guy that a lot of people aren't talking about, Azeez Al-Shaair. That's a hell of a linebacker. Only like $12 million tag. That's right around the same price, a little bit less than what Patrick Queen was getting. Right? So like, Texans are not afraid to necessarily, maybe they overpaid a little bit, maybe just a little bit, but that's a starting linebacker, and he's not going anywhere. And like Tanner said, you bring in a guy like Okudah, you bring in a guy like Jeff Okudah, who is now your number 3 corner because they re-signed Desmond King. Or maybe Desmond King jumps into the slot, right? Like, you now have a number 2 and number 3 corner that are completely interchangeable. Stingley's number 1.
Mm-hmm.
You have to keep Stingley going at number 1. But this Houston Texans team is not only exciting. I think you nailed it. I think you have to, unless that division goes crazy in the draft. This is a team that you can almost lock up the division right now before the draft even starts. And guess what? The Texans draft well.
Mm-hmm.
So this team's only going to get better. You know what I mean? After these free agents. So it's an exciting time to be a Houston Texans fan, just like Tanner said.
What did they I think Houston, I don't think they have a first round pick anymore in this year's draft, right? I think they traded it away. What was that for? Was that in the Danielle Hunter trade? Or I think he signed it.
No, he was just a 2-year. That one wasn't a trade.
Well,
I'm not. I don't remember what the actual trade was.
To the internet, but you can announce the next team, and I'll update you guys in a second.
That's why we got Tanner on. Gonna go to the Philadelphia Eagles real quick. I cannot believe what they did. Kenny Pickett. They brought in Kenny Pickett, along with a 4th round pick in exchange for a 3rd and a 7th, or in 2 7th round picks. They had some question marks in their running back room. They don't now. They signed arguably the best running back out there in free agency, Saquon Barkley, 3-year, $37 million contract with $25 million guaranteed. Not bad. Running back gets paid. That's what we like to see. Devontae Parker, 1-year deal. Tight end Albert O, 1-year deal. Offensive guard Landon Dickerson, 4-year, $84 million contract extension. Matt Hennessy agreed to a 1-year contract. Brandon Graham brought him back on a 1-year deal. Bryce Huff, 3-year, $51 million deal. Linebacker Zach Bond agreed to a 1-year deal. And he's not that far removed from the draft. Zach Bond, if I'm not mistaken, was out of Wisconsin. Pretty solid pass rusher. Oren Burks, Julian Okora, a 1-year deal for Devin White for $7.5 million.
That's crazy.
Cornerback Tyler Hall, CJ Gardner-Johnson, they brought him back, 3-year, $33 million. Jake Elliott, Brandon Mann, and left side 2-year contract extension. That's the Philadelphia Eagles. Before Tanner gives that reaction, what did the Texans trade? Did they trade that 1st round pick?
It was more like a pick swap. They traded their 1st round pick, which was number 23, and a 7th round pick from this year for Minnesota's 2nd round pick, number 42 for this year, and a 6th for this year, 188, and a future 2nd rounder. So I say they basically traded a 1st and a 6th for 2 2s and a 6th. No, they traded a 1st and a 7th for 2 2s and a 6th. So I think that's
getting more draft picks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, getting more draft picks, and that's what Houston's draft strategy has been, right? When you're an NFL team that's rebuilding, what do you need? Draft picks.
Mm-hmm.
You need as many draft picks as you possibly can. So you see it with teams. You see teams that literally have like 5 draft picks in an entire draft because they trade all their draft picks and they're all in on free agency. And when they trade, they throw those draft picks in there like it's candy. Yeah. Not Houston. Not Houston. Houston, if they do trade their draft picks, they're going up to get a premier guy like they did last season. But these guys have a lot of picks, especially with that, Deshaun Watson trade. But the Philadelphia Eagles, Tanner, take us through your reaction. I don't necessarily think that the Philadelphia Eagles or any team for that matter, now that we're reading it and really looking into it, has beaten the Houston Texans so far. But I mean, when you bring in a player of Saquon Barkley's caliber, and not to mention all of the other depth players that they brought in, and a starting linebacker like Devin White, which they clearly needed linebacker help, like that, they not only signed guys or positions that they needed, they hit a slam dunk at those positions that they needed, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we kind of talked about with like the Mike Williams signing. It's just the cherry on top is Saquon and Barkley. Like that is just an amazing signing. I'd be curious if we want to get into the contract details on that, because I want to see how much he's actually making when compared to other running backs.
Oh, compared to the other market,
like annually and stuff like that. But like, that's insane. The Philadelphia Eagles, we talked about it last episode. Like, I was like, bring back DeAndre Swift, bring in like a true running back like Josh Jacobs. No, they went and they did it a step better. They got an even better one in Saquon Barkley, who is probably one of the best running backs alive right now. So like their offense is going to be fine. They needed a reload because they were just not the same team at the end of last year, and that's exactly what they did. They re-signed a bunch of key offensive linemen, and those defensive acquisitions were crazy.
So I'm gonna jump in here to answer your question. I pulled it up on overthecap.com. Christian McCaffrey's getting paid $16 million a year. That's the number one running back. Alvin Kamara is getting paid $15 million a year. Jonathan Taylor, $14 million a year. Saquon Barkley is right there with the Eagles with $12 million a year.
Damn.
And then Josh Jacobs with the Packers, like you just said, at $12 million, jumps all the way down to the Texans at 9.8 for Joe Mixon. Derrick Henry at $8 million. DeAndre Swift at $8 million. I won't continue to go down, but that's kind of what it is. So Saquon is the number 4 highest paid running back in the league.
Jeez, that's pretty good. I mean, for Saquon, number 4, like that's pretty good. So they honestly got a steal there with him, and it's a running back, so it's like you're already getting a steal with the contract and everything like that. So the big question for him is, can he stay healthy, and can he continue to produce at the level that he has his whole career? I have no doubt that when he's on the field, he'll be fine. But you know, this past year I was really frustrated with Philadelphia and the way that they utilize their running backs. You know, with DeAndre Swift, I really don't think that was his fault. I think he's a really good running back, and I think he's going to play really well in you know his new destination. And it's just got, you know, Saquon, they better lean on him. They better just hand him the rock and say go. You know, that just go, because Philadelphia's got a great running scheme. They've got a great offensive line. I think he's going to do just fine there if they actually, you know, showcase him and let him be a premier part of that offense, because there's a lot of star talent on that offense, and you know, there's only one ball, so you're gonna kind of have to pick and choose every week which, you know, star goes off, and maybe one week, you know, Devontae Smith goes off and he gets like 100 yards and 3 touchdowns, and next week Saquon goes off. You know, it's like it's just one of those things. It's kind of becoming like a Niners situation over there in Philadelphia, which is a good problem to have. But anyways, enough about that. The defensive acquisitions: Devin White, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Bryce Huff. Like, that is, how do they have this much money? You know what I mean? Like, you just look at that and you're like, wow, that is crazy. I mean, they let Hassan Reddick go, right? He was a pretty good pass rusher for them the past season. They let him go, and then they go get Bryce Huff, and they're like, okay, we're fine. You know, we're good. That's crazy to me. They don't even consider signing him back. And C.J. Gardner-Johnson's back. He's an elite safety. You know, he was over there in Detroit and he played really well. You could note, like, when he was not in on those plays, like this past season, it was noticeably different, that defense. So he made a big impact on that Lions defense, and now he's back, and now he's going to do the exact same thing in Philadelphia, because they, you know, their safeties weren't that great this past year. You know, like I think Sidney Brown was like their starting safety on one of them, and he played okay, but like just not the spark that you need from a safety back there. So it's insane. Who was the Georgia linebacker that they took that fell really far a couple years ago in the draft? You remember? You know what I'm talking about? Nakobe Dean. He was supposed to be their future franchise linebacker, and that didn't really pan out. So they're like, all right, screw it. Let's just go get Devin White.
Yeah, it's interesting with Nakobe Dean. The thing of him coming out of Georgia is that, I mean, he was a sideline to sideline linebacker, one of my favorite linebackers in that class. He was just a bit undersized.
Mm-hmm.
And like, he really did remind me of Roquan Smith. Like, he really did remind me of Roquan. It's very similar play style, sideline to sideline, like I said, going to go out and get the tackle. But sometimes prospects don't work out. And that one, I mean, I hate to say it, you know what I mean? That was one of my favorite prospects coming out of the draft. If he would have gone to Dallas, I'd be a little bit more hurt about it. But since it's at Philadelphia, it's like, oh shoot, you know what I mean? Another
Right.
player didn't hit there. But yeah, no, I agree with you. They got really, really good on the defensive side, and you're like, okay, what did they do on the offensive side? Right? They re-signed the guy that they cannot let go on the offensive line to a massive contract. He's not going anywhere. Unfortunately, Kelsey, you know, got officially retired. But here's the thing: we all know Philly and Dallas are very apparent with where they're going to draft and what their team needs are. And I think Philadelphia is going to take a center in the first round, if not trade up into the second round to get it, because there's 2 centers in this draft, one out of West Virginia and one out of Oregon, that are probably first round picks because there's such a gap between the next center. So we'll see what happens with that. But Philadelphia, if they have a good draft paired with this free agency, oh man, You know what I mean? Oh man. And jumping to the last winner of free agent, or no, we have one more winner after this. The last winner in our division, we'll say in the NFC East, the Cowboys. Just kidding, they're not even close. The Washington Commanders. I mean, they get a new ownership group and they just signed some players, man. Quarterback Marcus Mariota, 1 year, $6 million deal, up to $10 million. Austin Eckler, 2 year, up to $11 million. Are you kidding me? Okay, take that. Not to mention they have Brian Robinson coming out of the backfield too, so get
Mhm.
ready for that. Jamison Crowder, he lost me a fantasy championship. I don't want to say anything about that. Zach Ertz, 1 year deal up to $5 million. Nick Algretti, the offensive guard, 3 year, 16. Tyler Biotish, center from the Cowboys, 3 year, $30 million. Edge from the Cowboys, 3 year, $45 million for Dorrance Armstrong. Cannot believe that was that much. Clelin Ferrell, 1 year, $3.75 million. That was the kid, if you don't remember, came out of Clemson. Pretty sure Oakland drafted him way too high, got released, and now he's bouncing around teams, but that's a solid edge. Oh, guess what? They got another solid edge from the Cowboys. Dante Fowler Jr. Signed a free agent deal. They got another edge, Effie Ubada, to a 1 year deal. Frankie Louvu, linebacker, 3 year, $36 million deal. That's a good one. Oh, who did they bring in to help him? 1 year, $6 million deals and guarantee $8.5 million total. Bobby Wagner. Then cornerback Michael Davis on a free agent deal. Safety Jeremy Chin, $4.1 million. Kicker Brian McManus, and then left side Tyler Ott. Washington. Yo. Take it away, Tanner.
That's impressive. I did not know that they signed Bobby Wagner. That was a surprise for me just now. But that's gonna be disgusting with Dan Quinn sitting back there. Not to mention Jeremy Chin too, who is just an absolutely really good defensive back. Doesn't get a lot of credit, but I think he's really good too. And he's a veteran. Bobby Wagner's a veteran. That defensive line, we don't, like it'll be fine. They got rid of Chase Young, but they're still gonna be fine. And Austin
They
Eckler.
got 3 guys. They got 3 guys that are taking Chase Young's spot. Literally. I'm
It's
pretty sure
true.
they got rid of, was it Sweat, or do they still have Sweat?
I think they got rid of Sweat because they still have Payne, don't they?
Yes, they still have Deron Payne. That's it. Thank you. So they got rid of Montez Sweat and they got rid of Chase Young. And I was saying, who are they going to replace these guys with? Well, now you see it. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? Now you see it. You have Dorrance Armstrong, who's probably the starter. If you're signing a 3 year, $45 million deal, or worth up to $45 million, you're probably going to be the starter there. Clelin Ferrell coming in as a solid depth. And then Dante Fowler Jr., you saw how good he was, depth on the Cowboys. And Dan Quinn is used to these guys. Dan Quinn has already coached Dorrance Armstrong. Dan
Hmm.
Quinn has already coached Dante Fowler Jr., and he came from the Cowboys defensive coordinator. Now he's the Washington head coach. So you see this a lot, and then you see Dan Quinn really sign a safety right when he starts, and that's why he did it. And also if you're a head coach and you're bringing in these offensive linemen, specifically offensive linemen for the Cowboys, the center, that means they can hold up.
Hmm.
So I think that Washington kind of got a steal there with the center, because Tyler Biotish isn't necessarily every Dallas Cowboy fan's favorite player, but on the offensive side of the ball, I would say he is like middle of the pack.
It's pretty
You know
good.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he is middle of the pack, and Dallas got we won't get into that, but yeah, I mean, to me, Washington comes in, scoops up, hey, Tyler Biotish is available. Oh, didn't know that, and then bang, 3 year deal, bring him in. So yeah, I mean, I think this team upgraded in pretty much every facet.
We're gonna absolutely see what happens because they did. I don't remember if it was. Yeah, it had to be a trade. They got rid of Sam Howell. I think he's in what, like Seattle now. Um, and
Correct.
so their quarterback position is wide open, and so they're basically gonna say like, hey, we're getting
They
a
picked number 2
quarterback.
in the draft.
And we,
Yep,
we,
they
we
picked
know
number 2 in the draft.
Chicago's getting Caleb Williams, and if you don't get him,
Yep.
then we will get him. So they're basically telling everyone like, yeah, we're taking a quarterback. You better take Caleb because we will if you don't. So
I think now that you mentioned that, I think that you literally have every single team in that division, aside from maybe New York, is telling you what they're going to pick in the first round.
yeah.
There's no way Washington doesn't take a quarterback there. And yeah, maybe Philadelphia goes a different direction, maybe Dallas goes a different direction than
Hmm.
offensive line, but man, I mean, Washington, you nailed it. They're going all in on that number 2 pick. All in on that number 2 pick, whoever their quarterback is. Personally, I think it's between Drake May and Jaden Daniels.
Same.
Me, Jaden Daniels all the way. A
Same.
little spoiler, Drake May is my number 30th ranked prospect on my top 50 board. I am not the biggest fan of Drake May. But like you said, Washington, pick number 2, keys to the castle. And I want to ask you a question.
Yeah, go for it.
Do you think it was a little bit premature to get rid of Howell? Because if you looked at his season, I mean, he didn't have a whole lot around him.
Yeah.
And he led the league in passing yards for a while. I don't know. For me, I don't let him go.
It's interesting because I think he was good, but it's like it was kind of in the same way that like not to the same degree, but like almost in the same way that Jameis Winston was good. You know what I mean? Like he was good. He could get passing yards and he could get the ball to his receivers, but like they were 4-13. He couldn't win. You know, like whether that be his fault or whether that be, you know, the defense's fault or the play calling or whatever, but like, you know, at the end of the day, like I saw more games than not where I was just like, okay, he's clearly struggling. You know, like there's just like he's just not doing well at all. And like even if he puts up these numbers, you know, these good numbers, it's like at the end of the day they're not winning. You know, he's a young quarterback. I don't know. I like him in Seattle more personally. I think he's gonna develop there a lot better than he would in Washington. But you got a number 2 pick. You're not taking, you know, like a receiver for Sam Howell. No offense, Marvin Harrison Jr., but like we want a franchise guy. Like if you're not, it's kind of like what you say. If you're not getting better, you know, why would you do it? And this, in my opinion, they're getting better with that number 2 pick, whoever they pick there at quarterback. So, you know, hey, you never know. You know, you never know what happens. But I wanted to look at their roster too, who they got on right now, like their depth chart and stuff. So obviously we said like center's Tyler Biotish, right guard is Sam Cosmi, he's pretty good. Right tackle though is Andrew Wiley. He's currently injured. Left guard, Nick Allegretti, like you said, and left tackle Cornelius Lucas. So the offensive line still needs a little bit of work, in my opinion. But
good amount.
They have a draft. Just go draft someone. So I think they're going to get a lot better there too.
And to interject, like you just said, they have draft picks. Remember, they pick number 2.
Mm-hmm.
That means they pick at the beginning of every single round.
It's like 34 in the second round, you know, so that's kind of how that works.
Basically a first round pick.
Yeah. So, but another thing to say with the Sam Howell thing, Terry McLaurin, they had him and they just couldn't make it work, you know, which is kind of surprising with him. Like you said, they got Jamison Crowder now and Jahan Dotson. That's their top 3 in receivers and Zach Ertz. Their defense, though, is disgusting because they got, like we said, with Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen, too, is over there on the defensive line as well. Dante Fowler Jr. and Dorrance Armstrong are your edge rushers off either side. So you got a little Washington in the middle and a little Cowboys on the outside. So I really like those 2 guys. I think Dorrance Armstrong was a great depth guy, but I'm curious to see how he's going to do in a starting position. Like you said, too, Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu and Jamin Davis are their linebackers, which is kind of gross. And they got defensive backs in Emmanuel Forbes, Jeremy Chin, Percy Butler, and Benjamin St. Juice. Those are their defensive backs with their safeties as well. Jeremy Chin's their safety, strong safety, and free safety is Percy Butler. So their defense is gross. It's going to be really good, like it usually is every year, but their defensive backs got a lot better over the offseason, and I think they're going to actually be competing a little bit if this quarterback situation ends up working out. But I just wanted to go through that because the roster is surprisingly really good. Like if they get if that quarterback pans out, be scared. Be scared.
Yeah, I don't think this division is going to be as far away as it was last year.
Mm-hmm.
I think personally that, you know, I think that Philly takes it this year with the acquisitions they've gotten. You can't really say that they haven't. I don't know if Washington is there right now. You know what I mean? Especially with that quarterback. It depends. If they get Jaden Daniels, I think he gives them a good shot. But a lot of those offensive linemen, I don't know about that. So I think Washington still has a lot to do on the offensive side of the ball. But I think that the defensive side of the ball is where they're going to dominate, and they're easily going to be top 10, if not top 5, especially with the addition of head coach Dan Quinn and the addition of these guys that he's already played with or already coached for a very long time. So I don't think Washington necessarily wins a division or gets second. I think Cowboys get second. I think Washington takes third, and I think the Giants get fourth next year, in my opinion, in the NFC East. Now, Tanner just said it. Washington picks at the beginning of every round, right? Or you know what I mean? So like that could change. They could get Jaden Daniels. Somebody could fall. Somebody could be sitting there on day 2. They don't get taken first. They get taken second. Like there's a lot of wide receivers in this draft class that are very good.
Mm-hmm.
Does somebody like Malik Neighbors Jr., the wide receiver out of LSU, fall? Is Troy Franklin sitting there from Oregon just hanging out? Is the speedy guy, I can't think of his name off the top of my head right now, out of Georgia, sitting there waiting for him? There's so many wide receivers in this draft class. There's so many wide receivers I have ranked on my top 50 that that's an option that they could go because they clearly need help on the offensive side. So I think Washington is solid on the defensive side of the ball, like Tanner said, but I'm not 100% sure how that offense is going to go. So we'll see how the offensive side of the ball goes. But do you have anything else on Washington, or are we going to jump to Green Bay?
We're going to go over to Green Bay.
So this is not a ton of signings, but I think all these signings are very good. They brought back AJ Dillon. They signed Josh Jacobs to a 4-year, $48 million deal, 12.5 signing bonus, so 14.8 in year 1. But still, we didn't necessarily think Josh Jacobs was going to get signed to a long-term deal. We didn't think Saquon was. Well, Saquon 3, Josh Jacobs 4. We already kind of went over where they are getting paid in terms of, highest paid running back in the league right now. Those are some of the top guys. But Josh Jacobs was the best running back in football, not last year, but the previous season. So I think they let go of Aaron Jones and they upgrade immediately with Josh Jacobs. And they still have AJ Dillon. They re-signed their tight end Tyler Davis. They re-signed their cornerback Corey Ballentine. They re-signed their cornerback / return man Keontae Nixon on an $18 million deal, max value 19. And then right here is the signing that just checked the box. This is how we have to put them in the winners category now. Xavier McKinney.
Ooh.
4-year, $68 million deal,
That's nice.
including 25.5 in year 1. So now you have a nasty defensive backs with Savage and Xavier McKinney. I mean, young.
Actually,
What?
Savage is not in Green Bay anymore.
Savage left.
Mm-hmm. He went over to, funny enough, the next team we're going to talk about in Jacksonville.
Oh, so that's okay. That makes a lot more sense why they gave him the bag then. Okay, well now that's their premier starting safety then for sure. But still, Xavier McKinney played as a top 3 safety last year. So really I don't know. This to me was a really good deal. But what do you think about the Green Bay Packers? I think you got to put them in the winner category with the running back and the safety signing.
I think anyone who signs Josh Jacobs is a winner because he's young, he's good, and he's hungry. He's literally getting better. So it was surprising to me that he left after all the comments that the Raiders had made, at the end of the season, like we're in it. Josh Jacobs is here. Max Crosby's here. But like he left and he got the bag, and I think he deserved it. And honestly, I think he's in a better situation in Green Bay than he was in Vegas because they're actually going to, feature him in that offense because it's Jordan Love. He's obviously still young. He's very capable, but he's young. You need a guy like Josh Jacobs to take the load off of Jordan Love every once in a while. And that's just going to make Love succeed even more, so like Love not only has like a safety blanket in Jacobs, he has a safety blanket that was leading the league in rushing 2 years ago, and he's pretty good too in the red zone touchdown category. So they got, in my opinion, the best bang for your buck running back in Josh Jacobs, with him being super young and a lot left to go in his tank. And they got Xavier McKinney, not to mention to replace Darnell Savage, who left. So like you said, he's really good. He's out of Bama, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so I remember when he was picked. It was like an early second-round pick, and we were like, no. But it was pretty cool. He's gonna do really well there. I think that team is gonna be competing for the division again this upcoming year, even with the Lions and whatever the Bears decide to do. But we'll see with Caleb Williams. But that's gonna be a fun division to watch. I am really excited to watch Josh Jacobs in a Green Bay uniform. I think he's gonna play really well, and that fan base behind him's just gonna cheer him on even more. So. Green Bay, good free agency. Very nice.
Nice job. Woo.
Good job.
Honorable mention time. I mean, you just kind of alluded to it. I have to throw in the Raiders there. We're not going to go over all their signings, but when you sign a guy like Hankins, the defensive tackle out
Oh
of
yeah.
Miami, and you bring him over to your line, and then you automatically make it to where you can't double team Max Crosby anymore. You have to throw in them as an honorable mention.
Oh, you mean
And then the
Wilkins out of Miami?
Wilkins, I said, yeah, Wilkins. Thank you, Christian Wilkins, and he's out of Clemson, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, he's definitely out of Clemson. I remember him. And then the Falcons, you have to throw
Mhm.
them in there too. The only thing that they haven't had is a quarterback, and they go sign Kirk Cousins.
True.
I can't believe they signed him for 180 million. And it includes a $50 million signing bonus, receives 100 million guaranteed. Still, it's a big contract, but the one thing that they were missing was the quarterback. And they couldn't find it. They couldn't draft it. So you got to go get one in free agency. And Kirk was the best quarterback in free agency this year. A lot of questions in Minnesota now, but Atlanta has their guy.
Mhm.
And Kirk, I think, puts this team, not I think, in my opinion, Atlanta is the favorite to win this division now with Kirk Cousins because he's the most reliable quarterback in that division, in my opinion, now. And Atlanta just immediately jumped up to the first place in that division. So, Kirk Cousins, that's really the the main signing. Ray McLeod signed to a 2-year deal. Kadarius Hodge re-signed. Darnell Mooney signed 3-year, $39 million deal. Rondell Moore, they brought him in with the trade in exchange for Desmond Ritter. Tight end Charlie Warner signed a 3-year contract. Storm Norton signed on a free agent deal. Contavious Street, the edge. Liam McCua, the left side. So that's all the signings for the Falcons, but just had to throw them in the honorable mentions. Do you agree that the Raiders and the Falcons kind of deserve to be in there, Tanner?
Yeah, I think they absolutely deserve to be in there. I mean, they got like some of the biggest targets in free agency. With the Falcons specifically, though, I think they got a decent amount better. I think obviously the Kirk Cousins acquisition was like huge. He's going to be 36, when he takes the field for the Falcons this upcoming season, and we're just going to see how much Kirk really has left in the tank because I wouldn't say it's a better receiving core that he's throwing to because no one's better than Justin Jefferson, and it's like whatever, but it's still
And Addison.
in Addison, like it's still pretty competent though. With
Bad.
with Drake, and you
Drake
got
London.
Drake London, Darnell Mooney, and now you got um who
You-
you just said him? You just said his name.
Are you talking about a receiver that they brought over?
Yeah.
Oh, Rondell Moore.
Rondale Moore, yeah, and he's fast too, so they're gonna get like the best of both worlds with him there as well. And I thought it was funny because they were like, how are you going to keep your number 8 when you go over to the Falcons? And currently Kyle Pitts is wearing number 8, and he's like, as long as he gives me targets. And then Kirk Cousins switched to 18. So we know don't pick Kyle Pitts in fantasy ever again because it's not going to work out this time, I promise. But hey,
Dude,
you never know. He could transform.
I'm scared.
Pitts.
I'm scared for him. That's the fantasy pick this year is Kyle Pitts. This is the biggest question mark of that dude.
This is his
'Cause
last
now,
chance. You realize that,
now
right?
it's like you got Kirk and he throws to his tight ends. He
That's
throws
true.
to his tight ends.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. Keep going.
But he's like, I mean, they basically have like 4 starting receivers that are going to be on the field at all times with Bijan, who's just a tank. So I'm excited. I think they're going to be pretty good. Like I really, you can't like undersell this Darnell Mooney thing too. I think Darnell Mooney's
You're such a fan of Darnell fucking Mooney.
he's good.
What?
He's so good. Like
Good, but he's not. I would never be that big of a fan. I love it though.
he's
Keep
so
going.
good. I really love the signing. I think he's when he was in Chicago, I thought when he was like a rookie, everyone was like, "Oh, yeah, he's really good." And then he just like no one talks about him anymore. But that receiving core has got a lot of depth and it's stacked now too. So and Drake London, he's gonna lead the way for all these guys.
Yeah, it's like 4 number 2s and like Drake London. It's like, all right, go ahead and go.
Yeah, but hey,
yeah, no, right there with you. You know what I mean? I'm right there with you. We threw him in there for a reason. Now, jumping to the losers. We're gonna hit a team last. That was on first, so I'm gonna skip them. We're gonna go to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Another reason I think that Tanner gave Houston pretty much the nod already in that division. Jacksonville needed to have a really, really good free agency, and I don't think they had the best one. They bring in Mac Jones. Okay, not bad for a 6th round pick. That's a solid backup quarterback. Running back Dearness Johnson. Okay. Okay. Gabe Davis, 3-year, $39 million deal, max of $50 million. Okay. Devin Duvernay, free agent deal out of UT, not too bad. Got some speed there. Blake Hansen extension. Ezra Cleveland, 3-year, 28 million. Mitch Morse, 2-year deal. Center. Josh Allen, franchise tagged. That's the one where I was like, come on, you've got to bring this guy back. Travis Gibson, free agent deal. Eric Armstead, they brought over on a 3-year deal as well. So the reason I have Jacksonville as losers of this free agency is because I think that they really needed to address that offense. Because the defense, like I think it was a really good signing bringing over Armstead. They paid a little bit more than I would have liked. It's a 3-year deal with $51 million. The Niners couldn't figure it out, but that's not bad because you have Josh Allen, but you're paying him 24 million for one season. I think he's shown you enough. In my opinion, I would have wanted to see Josh Allen finally get signed and not get paid $24 million a season, but instead they gave that money to essentially Eric Armstead. So that's why I kind of got and then I'm sorry, but $50 million for Gabe Davis. Like Gabe Davis is a number 3 in my opinion, and 50 million for Gabe
Well,
Davis. I mean, I know the wide
it
receiver
was
market is
it was
going up.
39, wasn't it? That's what you said. It was 39
Uh,
million.
at 39, but has a max value of 50. So he can get
Oh,
up to 50 with all the incentives and everything. But
gotcha.
you lost Calvin Ridley,
Hmm.
and I think it was a good thing that they lost him because Tennessee signed him to a freaking bag, and they let AJ Brown walk the other year. Don't even understand that one. But so you couldn't necessarily re-sign him, but instead of doing that, save that money and maybe go out. I don't know. I don't know. To me, I can't get behind this Gabe Davis signing for $50 million. The Mac Jones one I think isn't bad. I understand you want to you re-sign Dearness Johnson, but there's so many running backs out there that are still out there that would be such a good 1-2 punch with ETN. And to just let Calvin Ridley go and replace him with Devin Duvernay and Gabe Davis, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. To me, I'm not the biggest fan of it. But defensive side, I love the move that they did with Eric Armstead. That's my favorite move of this entire free agency. If they didn't have them, they'd be a huge loser. But now they're like almost kind of sort of, you know, not a loser. But what do you think about the Jags?
I mean, coming into this, I was kind of surprised that they were on the loser side because I really did like the like you said with the Eric Armstead signing and them letting Calvin Ridley go and stuff like that. But like you kind of convinced me a little bit, but I will play the devil's advocate here. I do like the Mitch Morse signing, the center from
Oh yeah.
I think he's from Buffalo, and I like him a lot as a center. I think he's a solid center. I think he's going to do wonders for that offensive line, who was clearly in shambles last year. And Ezra Cleveland, I thought, was one of the only bright spots on there. So I'm glad that they re-signed him. And not to mention, too, another guy what we talked about earlier with Darnell Savage. They have him now at the safety position. And I like that a lot. I think their defense got a lot better. I think it was not, it was on paper last year was pretty good, but like they just didn't perform that well when it came down to the stretch. But I think they're getting these guys, these veterans in here that are going to help them and make them, actually, lock in when the time has come towards the end of the season. But I like their defensive moves, and I agree with you. I think they probably should have gone out and gotten someone better, than like Calvin Ridley, because in my opinion, Gabe Davis doesn't really hold a torch to Calvin because I think Calvin has a lot more a higher ceiling than Gabe. But Gabe's had a lot of good games. But is that because of Josh Allen? I don't know. Is that because he's number 2 to Stephon Diggs? I don't know. It's just like one of those things. So I'm curious to see how he's going to do as number 2 to Kirk, or I almost said Kirk Cousins, Christian Kirk. But I like it. I don't think it's like the greatest move in the world, but in my opinion, I think it's still good. I also want to mention they got Ronald Darby, who is pretty good from the Ravens. And then, yeah, that was pretty much it. Not a lot of like huge signings on offense, but yeah, I mean, Eric Armstead and Josh Allen is going to be disgusting. Who are you going to guard? Both of them? Question mark. But
Yeah.
it'll be interesting. I don't hate it. I'll say that about their
Yeah. I
offseason.
don't I want to frame this as this is the least loser of the losers, and
Okay, yeah.
arguably could, like, you could really roll it up into like, not bad. Like, not that bad. I think the other teams that we're about to discuss are way, way, way worse in terms of
Hmm.
signings. But the reason that I had to throw Jacksonville in there, in my personal opinion, was because the signings that they went out and did when they could have just paid Josh Allen, their edge rusher who's done nothing but prove himself. Like probably they didn't need to go get Gabe Davis.
Yeah,
And they could have
probably.
addressed it in the draft, in my opinion. And then they could have still brought in Eric Armstead in and signed this guy to a contract. So that's kind of why I'm a little hypercritical of Jacksonville. But not necessarily the worst free agency for sure. This
No,
team, oof. This
yeah.
next one though is oof. Anyway,
Before you go
what
on though, I want to say too, it's kind of interesting comparing like Texans, you know, like their free agency, which was really good, and Jacksonville, who their free agency was like okay, but it's like I think it's just kind of in comparison making Jacksonville's a lot worse, you know, because
yeah.
you got Houston out here just making really really good moves, for arguably a lot cheaper decisions, you know, so I don't know, I think it's a nice little comparison.
Yep, and that's another reason I put him in there. I appreciate that. Denver Broncos. Wow.
Well, who did they sign?
Tanner and I just visited that stadium recently. Their number one signing is their fullback, so that's how you know it's not going too well. Re-signed on a 1 year deal, Michael Burton. Re-signed little Jordan Humphrey to a
Nice.
1 year contract. Re-signed re-signed a free agent deal. Adam Troutman, Mike Pearl signed 1 year deal. Malcolm Roach signed 2 year deal worth $8 million. Cody Barton signed 1 year deal. Linebacker Justin Strawn signed 1 year deal. Safety Brandon Jones 3 year deal. PJ Locker, their safety, or PJ Lock, safety, 2 years, 7 million, max value of 9. Will Lutz re-signed in Denver after he was supposed to go to Jacksonville. So not a single go out and get it guy, not a star, not I mean, you let your receiver walk. Cleveland jumped on him absolutely immediately as soon as you let him walk and signed him to a literal contract. So I don't know. To me, this is a not only a loser, but a massive loser. And oh, by the way, they're still paying Russ a ton, and he's not even there next season.
Mhm.
So, what do you think about the Broncos?
I think the Russell Wilson experiment is over, and they know that this is a very clear rebuilding time for them. So I think that they're just kind of trying to clear house. Like, hey, we got guys, you want them because we're not going to use them for the next couple years. I think Broncos are headed into a very disgusting rebuild because not only do they get rid of Justin Simmons, Jerry Judy, you know, Russell Wilson, these guys who were like your franchise pieces, they're just not signing anyone else. So it's pretty clear that they're like, all right, we've given up. Let's just start over, implode the franchise, and let's try again. So I don't think it's a bad move because you know they spent a lot in free agency to go get Russ, and they've gotten some pretty key guys over you know drafting over the past couple years, but like none of them have really like panned out that much. Besides for like I said, like Justin Simmons, you know. So it's like we have him. He's pretty good. You want him? You know, so we're not going to be winning any games anytime soon. So I, I don't hate it. You know, obviously they didn't do anything in free agency, so like in those terms, like no, you know they sucked, but like I think it's right for the franchise. I think the rebuild was needed. It was obviously not working, and now Sean Payton can go bring in whoever the heck he wants. So this
Through the
team,
draft,
yeah, they're
you
not going to
know?
be turning any heads this year, or probably in the next couple years.
No, no, and this team, brought Sean Payton in to win now, and I don't think that this team is better than last season. I think they've gotten way worse than last season, and even if they have a draft that hits, I don't necessarily think that they're going to be better than next season either. So I like Tanner said, I think this team's it got at least a couple years. The Broncos don't scare me one bit, but that's definitely a big loser for free agency. The next loser we have is a team that Tanner and I, not too far, got to see their stadium this year.
Mhm.
Didn't see them play, saw the Rams play, but the Los Angeles Chargers, like we just mentioned, they let go of Mike Williams. They traded Keenan Allen to the Bears. So right now, their number one wide receiver is Quentin Johnson, the wide receiver at TCU that they got last year in the draft. Interesting, bold. That's bold strategy there, Cotton. Um, First free agent they signed, re-sign Easton Stick, baby, the quarterback. Okay. Then they signed the running back Gus Edwards,
I
2
like
years,
that.
$6.5 million deal. That's not a bad one.
I like Gus.
I don't think that he replaces Austin Eckler. But hey, not a bad power back, right?
Yeah.
Tight end Will Dissly, 3-year, $14 million deal, $10 million guaranteed. Hayden Hurst, free agent deal. Tight end room upgraded. Uh, Center Bradley Bozeman, 1-year contract. Defensive line Poona Ford. Defensive or linebacker Troy Dye. Linebacker Denzel Perryman. And safety Alo Gilman, 2-year, $11 million deal. So the most he spent on a free agent was Will Dissly, 3-year, $14 million. Then Aloe Gillum with $11 million. And then Gus Edwards at 6.5. Then everybody else is a 1-year deal or something smaller than that. So they didn't have a ton of cap room, but when you let your halfback 1, wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, you got to replace them a little bit. And they didn't even sign a wide receiver in free. I mean, there's not one. They didn't give a guy. So they're getting a wide receiver in the draft now. I mean, I don't know. To me, it's like, what more do you want Justin Herbert to do, man? Like Keenan Allen, that was this guy. I didn't think Keenan Allen was ever going to leave Justin Herbert. Really, I never did. And then you get rid of, okay, fine, Mike Williams is hurt, signed a big contract, want to get it off the books. This is da 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 da. Okay, fine. But you gotta have somebody ready. I'm sitting here waiting. I'm like, okay, there's a trade coming with the Chargers because something's got to give, right? Something's got to give. But here's the thing: the Chargers pick very early in the draft, and most likely will have their pick of Romeo Dunze or Malik Neighbors, the wide receiver out of LSU. Malik Neighbors, Romeo Dunze, the wide receiver out of Washington. Whichever one you like. I think Marvin Harrison's gone. By their pick, but I don't know. That's a gutsy call for me to let go of all of those positions and be like, all right, by the way, we got Harbaugh. So start utilizing some college talent. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
just I don't understand it. I don't think I've ever seen a free agency where they let their number 1 and number 2 wide receiver and number 1 running back just walk. And it's not because of bad performance. They've done nothing but do great things for that organization. So what do you think? Take me through it.
I think you hit it right in the head. I don't really understand it a lot either, but I think they're, saying what they're going to do in the draft, right? They're going to probably draft a receiver because Quentin Johnson is not the number 1, and he probably won't do anything this upcoming season. So like you got to draft someone, and I mean, I kind of get it with the Austin Eckler kind of Mike Williams. We don't want to pay him. They've been good for us, but like, we can just go get talent elsewhere, kind of thing. But at the same time, it's like Mike Williams is pretty good. Keenan Allen's they're pretty good. Austin Eckler's pretty good. But, they've been kind of going through this experiment the past couple of years, and it really hasn't been working. Like, I agree with you. They have had good results, and those players have played pretty well. But, like, they really haven't done anything in the playoffs. Like, they haven't done much in this regular season, this past season. And then they're never like, obviously it's going to be hard to win that division, but like they're never even like close to winning it. It's just always like they're always playing for that wild card. And yes, that's just because Kansas City is good, but at the same time, it's like you don't only play Kansas City. You play them twice a year, and that can account for 2 of your losses, sure. But like, there's other teams that you can definitely beat with that roster, in my opinion. This past season, a lot of us were saying that they had one of the best rosters in the NFL. And now they're completely gone. So it's like, I think Harbaugh's just going in there. I think he's just like cleaning house. He's like, all right, I want my guys in here. I want to make a program that's mine and not just like any of the other guys. And you see head coaches doing that a lot. But like, it's kind of surprising that he let Keenan Allen go. That was, like you said, the one guy that I did not think was going to leave. I could have guessed Austin Eckler. I could have guessed Mike Williams because of the contracts and how important they were to the team. But like Keenan Allen was the Chargers. Like he was literally the Chargers. So there's going to be a new number 1 over there. And I think it's going to be that first round pick, whoever they go and decide to pick. But they could make some moves too in the draft. I do not, maybe some trades, that's all I'm saying. They could trade back in the first round, double dip at receiver and just absolutely lock that up right then and there. And then they'll have the youngest receiving core in the NFL. But I don't know who
Just
Herbert's
go
going to
get
throw
both of
to.
them out of LSU. Just get both of them out of LSU. Go
That'd
get
be
Malik
gross.
Neighbors and go get Brian Thomas. Just be like, yeah, trade back into the end of the first.
That'd be
Snag Brian
gross.
Thomas, already taking Malik Neighbors. That's what you got to do. That's what it is. It's hardball. No, I don't. Michigan's got a good receiver. Michigan's got some good receivers that are probably going to be there. You're going to see a lot of Michigan Wolverines that are going to end up on this team if I had to take a random guess. But you
Probably.
nailed it. They just, Harbaugh went in and cleaned house. That's exactly what he did. I don't know if that team's going to be competing for. I think they're going to be competing for games, but I need to see a whole lot more. With that offense being as gone as they have. Last team that we're talking about, then we're going to hit quickly some March Madness. But the Dallas Cowboys, I think easily the biggest losers in free agency. They've signed they've done 4 total signings. And yes, Jerry was quoted saying he was going to go all in earlier in the year. So you really sold the shit out of that one, Jerry. Running back, Rico Dowdle re-signing a 1-year deal. The only free agent that Dallas have signed is Eric Kendricks. Re-signed Jordan Lewis to a 1-year deal, and their left side Trent Seg on a free agent deal as well. So those are the only free agent signings that Dallas has made thus far. Dallas lost their starting running back. Dallas lost their starting center. Dallas lost their starting left tackle. Dallas lost a ton of depth guys in their defensive end position. And they've also lost a lot of guys in their defensive tackle position that have also got signed. So every single player that Dallas has released has gotten signed. And also another cornerback that you're not seeing on this list is Stephon Gilmore. Stephon Gilmore is still, it's a maybe if he's going to come back or not. And like we also said, wide receiver number 2 or number 3, however you want to look at it, Michael Gallup is also gone and released. So Tanner, what do you think about the whole 4 signings that Dallas did?
I have been tooting this horn for the past year, 2 years, but I think what they're doing is they're just getting ready to sign Micah Parsons and CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott. I think they're just going to be like, all right, we can't have anyone else. We're going to have to build through the draft with everyone else, and we can't really have a lot of other big talent, So they're going to sign those main guys, and I think they're just going to run with those veterans for the foreseeable future. Like I think they're just clearing up cap space because they know that the storm is coming because Micah will be paid at the top of his position and CD will be at least top 2. So it's just one of those things. I think you should get the deals done sooner rather than later so that you can get a good deal on them. But they're cleaning house, and I think they're just gonna try and build through the draft like they always do. I don't think it's not exciting. It's not splashy. The Eric Kendricks signing was really good. I really like that one. I like Kendricks a lot. We've talked about him a decent amount on this show and how good of a veteran linebacker he is, especially after Leighton Vander Esch retiring from the NFL. I really hope Eric Kendricks doesn't take on the linebacker curse from the Dallas Cowboys because I like him. I think he's pretty cool. But that's pretty much the only thing. I think the defense will still be pretty good, regardless of if Stephon Gilmore's there or not. The corners, they've mostly come into their own with Deron Bland, Trayvon Diggs, and a bunch of other guys that they got over there. Safeties are fine. Defensive linemen are fine. I don't really know what they're going to do on the offensive side of the ball, though, because you got who's your running back? Rico Dowdle. He's the number 1. Who's number 2? You know what I mean? Like Deuce Vaughn. Deuce Vaughn is number 2. And then not to mention that they let go of their franchise left tackle and Tyron Smith, and or I wouldn't say franchise center, but he was playing for a very long time in Dallas, and he knows that offense very well. So it doesn't make a lot of sense. Is kind of what I'm getting at. I just don't think they had a lot of room to operate. Is the reason though, because they know what they're going to have to do in the upcoming years, but sign a couple guys, do a 1-year deal, go that route, sign some veterans like that, like Philadelphia always does. I don't know. They're going to have an amazing draft if they want to keep up the play that they have been doing this past year. If they want to win the division at all or even get close, they're going to have an amazing draft and sign multiple starters in that draft for the foreseeable future. So it's going to have to be. They're probably going offensive line in the first round. That's kind of what Dallas likes to do, and I trust them on that regard. But every other pick, it's up in the air. You know what I mean? It's going to be like, what? I don't know. They could start. They could not. They could suck. They could be great. But they didn't really make an effort to go out and get anyone that wasn't Eric Kendricks. I think they signed a long snapper. That was cool. But besides that, nothing. Big old stinker.
Yeah, and you pretty much nailed it. They had a ton of needs in terms of positions that they just let go, that they could not sign. And yeah, they're probably kind of stacking up to get ready to sign those two massive contracts and bring back Dak to pay $60 million a year, even though he has only 2 playoff wins. But it's just not the best time in the world to be a Cowboy fan whenever you see how much Washington is doing, how much the Eagles are doing, how much better their cap situation is, and just how much better that roster is at this point now too. So that's kind of why I see the Cowboys kind of taking a step back this season, because here's the thing: Cowboys have had draft classes hit before, but you don't usually have more than 3 or 4 guys hit in a draft class, and Dallas needs to have like every round hit. And that's like Will McClay is great in terms of drafting. He's done great things in Dallas, but I mean, that's a lot of pressure on that scouting department, a lot of pressure on that front office, because not only do you not have cap space right now, Dallas had $2 million of cap space practically the whole free agency. And then they restructured Dak Prescott's contract after everybody got signed. So Tanner's nailed it right on the head. This team can only build through the draft because they are so held in on their salary cap. They are quite literally being boxed in by their own salary cap right now with the Trayvon Diggs contract that they have on the books and the current Dak Prescott contract that they have on the books and all of the dead money that they have from all of these players that they've signed to big deals, Michael Gallup, Ezekiel Elliott. They're still paying those players. So that's the reason Dallas didn't have a ton of cap space. That's the reason Dallas will have way more cap space next year, depending upon what they do in terms of signing these guys. But you had a lot of positions in need, and Dallas quite literally addressed one with a veteran linebacker who definitely played starting football last season. But if he gets injured, I mean, you're also going on young depth guys, right? In terms of Dallas and who they got. Yeah. So you have to build through the draft. And there's really not another option because Dallas has made it very apparent that they want to sign CD. They want to sign Micah Parsons, and Jerry, for some reason, is not going to give any other quarterback a shot other than Dak Prescott. So the Cowboys are what they have is what you're going to see with the addition of some veteran free agents after the draft, maybe a little bit before as well, and then some prospects like Tanner and I talked about for the draft. So that's pretty much everything with the Cowboys. I saw a really interesting picture that ESPN or Sports Center posted that I screenshotted it that I had to bring it up on this podcast. Okay, it's from Sports Center. So Daniel Jones is getting paid $47.1 million. Dak Prescott 49 or 59.4 million. This is just their cap hits. Okay. So that's Daniel Jones's cap hit is 47.1. Dak Prescott is 59.4. Eagles. Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley, 36.3 million.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
That's crazy. That's something that's absolutely insane. And that is something that that tells you right there, there's winning football teams and then there's winning football teams. And right now, Philly is the winning football team. And I think Dallas not only took a step back, I think Dallas is going to have a hard time beating Washington in one of those meetings next season now. They have to have Tanner nailed it, and then we'll move on to some March Madness. They have to hit on pretty much every single one of these draft picks. If you don't hit on one of those offensive linemen, it is a catastrophic failure, because then you have to either move your guard Tyler Smith over to tackle, which La'el Collins 2.0, he's a really good guard, and then you stick him over at tackle. Who knows what's going to happen? He's already here. He's not going anywhere, but that's a scary thought, right? Because you could take his confidence away at the guard position and throw him at tackle, and you have no idea what's going to happen. So that's scary to me. And like we said, what's happening in the draft. You know Dallas needs an offensive lineman. You know Dallas needs a halfback. You know Dallas needs a wide receiver. You know Dallas needs interior defensive lineman and exterior defensive lineman. It's probably it. It's probably what the Cowboys are going to draft this season. So it's hopefully going to be a lot better after the draft. But last year, Dallas didn't have the best draft. So we're going to see. We're going to see what happens. You can argue that Dallas's drafting has regressed in these past couple seasons, other than progressed when, because you can't really have a better draft class of signing Ezekiel Elliott, Dak Prescott, and Trayvon. But anyway,
yeah,
it's going to be an interesting season next year for Dallas and Dallas fans, and we're going to have a way better, handle on it at the beginning of the season, after the draft. And you know what? Tanner nailed it. If you sign Micah Parsons or you sign CeeDee Lamb and come out to the fans and say, look, we couldn't afford anybody else. We got to sign this guy. Okay, that's fine. You can't let CeeDee Lamb walk. You cannot let Micah Parsons walk. Those are two guys you can't let walk. Trayvon's already here. Dak, we know he's going to be here because Jerry will not let him walk away. So that's your team. Everybody else through the draft.
Yeah.
Literally everybody else. So that is it for the football talk for this episode. We're gonna quickly run through this. I just got the bracket pulled up here. A couple games that have already taken place. Literally Thursday. Can't believe this is already started. Tara and I record, a little bit later on in the afternoon, so we've seen a couple of these games. But BYU upset by Dubois. Number 11 upsets BYU number 6.
It's kind of close. I actually learned how to say this today. You say it Duquesne.
Oh, that Duquesne.
I think so. I always heard that's how they were saying it. I could still be wrong, but phonetically it looks like Duquesne phonetically, but I think it's Duquesne. But again, I could still be wrong. That was a good game though. They played really well, and BYU just really didn't.
Yeah, beat them 71-67. Then Illinois handles Morehead State 85-69.
Also a good game.
Yeah, that was a solid one. And then you've got a couple games going on right now. We won't say those games going on because we don't want to give anything away for anybody that's listening in live. And then Oregon upsets South Carolina. Number 11 upsets number 6, 87-73. Creighton handled the Akron Zips 77-60. Then you had Dayton barely escape Nevada 63-60. And then Arizona, number 2 ranked Arizona, took out Long Beach State 85-65. Long Beach State, right down the road from where I'm at right now. I was really hoping, really rooting for them, but of course they get Arizona first. And yeah, those are games. You've already had an upset in Oregon. You almost had another upset in Nevada. Arizona handled business. South Carolina, like I said, got upset. Is anybody's bracket still good? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Is anybody's bracket still good? I know our bracket's already busted.
Yeah, it's gone.
But hey, we had to hit on the games that we'd already seen. Tanner's really the basketball guy of this podcast. So as March Madness goes on, we'll continue to hit on it and kind of recap. But Tanner likes a lot of these basketball guys and has some of these guys and has seen a lot of these guys in person that are literally going to get drafted in the first round. So it's pretty cool. He got to follow around the band and literally see all these guys front row. And he even got to see him in Madison Square Garden too, by the way. Pretty sick. But anything surprise you with those games? I think the only thing is maybe the upsets, but what did you kind of see with those games?
I think it's interesting. I want to start on the Illinois and Morehead State match because I did watch that one. Morehead State actually was not looking that bad at all in this game until late. You could say about midway through like the second half. I think that's when kind of Illinois started to pull away. And Illinois actually has this guy. His name is and it's not the guy you're thinking of. His name is Dane Danger, which is probably one of the sickest names that I've heard. But no, Illinois just played really well. They were playing really good team ball, and at Morehead State they played pretty well. It's not that they weren't playing well at all, but they just kind of missed those shots towards the end of the game, which is a consistency thing that just they couldn't get through. But I think the other big game was that Oregon and South Carolina game. That was a good game as well, and Oregon just showed up. Absolutely showed up. I think I don't know how to say his last name, but Jermaine Couisnard, he dropped 40 on his former team. So very impressive display from Oregon. They're an 11 seed, but they're playing like a much better seed, especially to take out South Carolina, 6 seed like that. South Carolina, they played well in the SEC this past season. Like they were not bad at all. I even remember a couple games with A&M where they just squashed A&M. So it's like, wow, it's impressive. But you got Colorado State and Texas going on right now. I won't say the score to that one, but it's a little one-sided. Kentucky's actually losing right now. I'll say this one to Oakland, but it's in like very, very early on in the game. But very, very, very good matchups so far. I think I'm gonna be watching a couple of these tonight, and nothing really surprising. I think Akron played well against Creighton, but Creighton's just a good team. And then the Michigan State and Mississippi State. That's probably the biggest game. That was the first one. Mississippi State goes down, and they didn't really put up much of a fight. They only put up 51 points, and that's pretty bad. Pretty bad. But going on to Friday, Texas A&M and Nebraska play. I'll be watching that one at 5:50 p.m. for me, 3:50 for Chad, and whatever time the rest of you are in. And then you have Northwestern and FAU. FAU, I think, was a Final Four team last year. They made it pretty far. That'll be another good match, another 8 and 9. Any other big standouts here? New Mexico and Clemson. I think New Mexico is going to give Clemson a run for their money. I don't think it's going to be as one-sided as the bracket could potentially make it look like it. Yeah, Clemson's favored, but I think New Mexico is a good team. I really do. And then Colorado and Florida. Colorado has a very good team, even though they're a 10 seed. So watch out, Florida. It's a lot of these random, these teams that are just you only see in college basketball. So I think those are the big ones for me. But Alabama, watch for them make a splash. They're not as good as they were last year, in my opinion, but they're still pretty dang good. But yeah, there's a lot of really good teams playing today and tomorrow, and we already have upsets. So I'm very happy as a sports fan.
It wouldn't be March Madness without a ton of upsets. But that's it for the sports talk today, folks. We will catch you next week.
Bye bye, everyone.